We're taught there is a timeline for everything: career, love, family, success. But what happens when life doesn't follow that script? Today's guest didn't just pivot. She embraced every twist, rewrote her narrative, and found joy in the unexpected. And this conversation is really about one thing: learning how to trust your own path. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soft Power Project. Today's guest, Danielle Frank, has built a remarkable career spanning from Hollywood to the world of fine wine. And she's also the author of A Wine's Lover's Guide to Parenting, a witty, insightful take on parenting through the lens of wine. And beyond her career, I think Danielle brings a unique lens to life on the blend of observation, humor, and honesty. Hi, Danielle. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on your great podcast. Appreciate it.
We're just having a chat, and I felt like you had such a unique perspectives on life. And I feel like, you're going from Hollywood into the world of fine wine, and now you're observing parenting almost kind of like outside in. Like, what have you seen about human behavior, like in the company, in the working environment, in parenting at dinner tables, that most people don't seem to notice?
I mean, I think, you hit it from a good point. I don't look at it as a book about parenting. It's about people, it's about raising kids well, is really about understanding human behavior better. And you don't need to be a parent to know good behavior in humans is what I always say. And, I'm a keen observer in life and worn so many hats, living in New York, moving to LA, working in the wine and spirits industry, previously working in entertainment. So, all these years I've been a keen observer of just human behavior, but particularly with kids, I'm an aunt to my niece and nephew. I'm an auntie to so many of my friends' kids. And I was a bonus mom for many years to my ex fiance's kids that I was with for quite some time. And so I just, started to see these fun parallels of human behavior and, raising kids to have decent human behavior, all in the lighter lens of wine terminology.
And I think that is so important, right? Because a lot of times parenting seems so heavy for the parents because you're in the trenches, like you're there every day, and you're worried about the small things. You're worried about schedule. You're worried about, are they eating too much? Are they eating too little? Are they going to the bathroom, regularly? Like those, the kind of things. I'm just like, and now that I think about it, the problems I seemed to worried about 5 years ago were just like so small. But at the time, I'm in there. So as someone who had observed as an auntie, why do you think parents have such a hard time to let go of these mundane, small issues that they may actually kind of like regret in later years?
Yeah, I mean, you say about being in the trenches. I joke around about that, but it's true. I've heard parents trade war stories like battle hardened soldiers, right? And sometimes when you're directly in the trenches, it's not so easy to see that, the grape juice you're drinking can turn into a fine Cabernet. I say that, raising kids is about, like I said, understanding human behavior. And I think sometimes when you're deep in it, it's hard to see the middle. It's hard to see, you get so caught up in the weeds, right? Like I call it, I'm like an outsider insider, because, a lot of these kids, like my niece and nephew, like my friends' kids that I'm very close with, like my ex's kids that I'm vested in their well-being. But, I think sometimes parents are too close to it. And so I'm sort of like the neutral third party who's like, hey, it's easier to take a step back. And I can't proclaim to be a parent, but I can't imagine you're trying to do everything perfectly and you're not giving yourself time and permission to realize that it's okay to take a step back. because you're in it all the time. I mean, I get to at least observe it and, take a step back and go home. So it's easier for me to like reflect on everything and break it down and look at it with a different sort of lens.
But I think because you're able to just step away a little bit, you have that clarity and to the whole situation because a lot of times you do kind of have to see things far away to see things in a well-rounded or holistic point of view. And I'm just wondering, very curious because you were in New York for a very long time and then you moved to California. I think you mentioned 23 years ago. You changed career from entertainment to one in spirit. Do you think these life transitions has helped you to see human behavior the way you do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, that's my whole story. I've lived multiple plot twists, from shifting careers, from moving across the country to breaking off an engagement. When I realized I thought the future that I was headed towards, including motherhood, that was something I very much did want. Once I realized, it wasn't the one for me or wasn't going to happen for me, but instead of letting those detours define me, I just learned to rewrite the story entirely. And that's why I love talking about, bucking the traditional timelines and just embracing a life that looks different than the unexpected or the expected checklist and discovering, the freedom and humor and purpose in the unplanned. So yeah, all these pivots I've learned, to embrace it and that it's not failure. It's actually quite the opposite. It, can lead you to discover a whole new journey. And that's what it's done for me. I always say there's not one yellow brick road that leads to Oz. There's lots of different paths along the way. And when you get off one path, it's easy to just kind of stew in like, oh, oh no, what could have been. But that's not going to help propel you onto that new path. And when you empower yourself to embrace it, acknowledge that you're on a new journey, you can find the excitement in where that new journey and where that new path is going to take you. And I mean, that's what it's done for me. I wanted to be a mom. I thought that path was for me. I realized that path didn't happen for me, but I embraced the new path I was on. And there's not a day of regret that I have. Just because I'm not a mother doesn't mean I don't nurture. As I said, I'm very involved in many of my friends' kids' lives, take them to escape rooms, feed them up with candy, and then I get to send them home. But I've created a life for myself, traveling. I'm on a plane to Spain next week, and that's become a big part of my life. I'm very curious about the world and want to see every country and experience every culture. So this journey that I'm on now has just been so rewarding. So if I was
Yeah.
on that path to motherhood, I know it would have been equally as rewarding. But I've learned to embrace this other path that I'm on and see how rewarding that new journey has been for me.
From a mother, I am so jealous because you were talking about your retirement plan. You wanted to be in Europe. You wanted to spend half of a year in Europe and back. I'm like, oh my goodness, it just sounds like a movie to me. But I wanted to ask you because you mentioned that you're able to rewrite the story and really embrace in a way uncertainty and then build your own path from there, right? It's not just one road. There's several ways. What are the tools that helps you day to day from, if you are in that hole or in that space where you kind of don't feel very good about yourself? Because I feel like a lot of times when we're pivoting, that happens, that messy middle, don't seem to be able to escape that messy middle. Like, how do you get yourself out of that space?
It's hard. I wish I had one answer of like, here's what you do. You snap your fingers 3 times and you click your
Yeah, I
heels
know.
because everybody's so different. There isn't one thing, right? But I think that's part of the process is figuring out what it is that will be your guide, right? Like for me, writing was one of the things. When I broke up with my fiance, there was a pivotal moment in my life. And I know therapy works for many people. For me, I just feel like it doesn't. I tried therapy at one point. And I found that like I wasn't being honest with the therapist. And I said,
Hmm.
that's kind of defeats the purpose. But I know the crux of therapy is it's meant to they're not supposed to give you advice. They're supposed to have you talk about it and bring it to the surface so you hear it, right? So for me, a lot of that's writing. And I realized like, so when I was unhappy in my relationship with my ex, I started like writing to myself so I can like see it on paper and hear it for myself. And then when I broke up with him, I remember sitting in my new apartment and I was just writing again, like, and I never cried another day. I mean, I realized just on how unhappy I was in the relationship, having gone through other pivots in my life, like moving cross country and changing my career, started to build the confidence in me that empowered me to know that I'd be fine. That's the other thing. You have to build up
Mm,
your confidence to know that, like, you've gotten through something before, you can get through the messy middle again. So, part of my process is writing. That's actually when I wrote my book. Mean, I sort of was channeling the idea that I might not become a mother, but I still wanted to I realized I may not be raising children of my own, but I still felt a pull to influence the kind of human beings we're raising, so my book became part of that as well. For me, that's a big part of it is finding what's going to be your salvation, push you over the edge, writing, reading it back to me, being honest with myself about it, that's a huge thing for me. And I think the other thing also is just like taking a breath, right? I we get so frazzled. I've learned even just like with work, like if I'm like fired off, I won't send that email because, nothing good can happen to that. So it's the same thing, just like instead of just getting frazzled and just trying to dart across the bridge, just kind of walk with purpose and think about the transition across the bridge, so you can get out of the middle of it and over and go see the other side.
I love that you mentioned that just having that self trust, knowing that everything will be okay because we've all been through a lot and you were fine. So you're going to be okay. And I love how you mentioned about writing. And obviously, I think everyone talks about journaling and how helpful that is. But I think that something came up is that because you write consistently, so when you decided to break off the engagement, you're able to actually kind of to go back and be like, yeah, there are evidence to show me that relationship did not work. So you don't have to go into your head and imagine, oh, just only pick out the good time. Because I think a lot of people would do that when the relationship didn't work. They only try to remember the good times and they get to ruminate and just stay in that space, which is not a really good space to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, relationships particularly, I think if anything, the important thing is to extract the lessons from it, right? And I use that to guide me of with my writing and talking about like, oh, I was so unhappy with this. I was so unhappy with that. I mean, one of the things that my ex, I mean, there was a lot of things besides him not wanting kids, but he was like, he had been married before. And so he was somebody like, he just wanted to now, and that's why he didn't want more kids ultimately. He just wanted to like chase the party, and like he was nearing 40, I was late 30s, and I was now ready to be like, okay, start thinking about family life. He's somebody that just always had to stay out to the bitter end, and so I remember my first night in my new apartment, I was meeting some friends for a drink around the corner, and I was like, I don't know, let's say it's 9 or 9:30. I was like, "You know what? I'm tired. I'm gonna go home." And I was laying in my bed, and I was just looking at the ceiling. I was like, a smile on my face. I was like, I was tired, and I went home, and I did what I want to do. And I think just like having that honest conversation with myself about all the bad things, right? I appreciate the good things. I have no regrets. It was a great relationship, but understanding the bad things, it armors you to prepare yourself for what you don't want in the future. Like those are all things that I will apply and I have applied to future relationships when, I know what I will and won't put up with anymore. And you use the good and the bad as the curriculum, and it should teach you discernment and trust in yourself and patience. And you don't want to remove the hard parts. That's the framework of what makes you who you are and then pushes you forward.
Yeah. I think that's so beautiful because you're able to see things in a very clear way. Because I think a lot of times in relationships, we sort of projects a lot of what we imagine it to be or our ideal, right, relationship partners or the life is going to be in that relationship. And we forget to see the reality. But I really admire your way of looking at things, it just in clarity. And I'm wondering because you are a writer and storyteller at heart. Have you ever really looked at yourself as like the character in your story in the book?
Oh, yes, that's very interesting. I like that. I've just always been somebody. I've just always had a creative outlet, and my idea. I'm just somebody that like ideas come to me. So I have like a children's book, like an actual children's book series idea, and a lot of that came from. Let me backtrack. A lot of it's just like I'm such an optimist and I just want the world to be a better place, especially these days. So that's I think where so much of my writing initially came from. The children's book series that I started, like that was the first thing. It was all about like teaching kids about like different cultures and like helping kids to understand we all sleep under the same star of skies. Like, just because somebody looks different or talks different, eats different foods, it doesn't make one right or, one better or not. And so for a very long time, I just had this urge to just want to make the world a better place and do that through writing. And that's kind of where then this idea came from too, is another avenue like, well, wait, this is like great for the parents. And that's why I wrote it as like a children's rhyming. So it's written like a children's illustrated rhyming book. So it's a great baby shower gift, right? When somebody's about to have a baby or they just had a baby. I mean, it's great for anybody that just loves a good humor book or wants to learn about wine. But yeah, so that became the other avenue for me is like, oh, I want hit parents when they're raising their kids when they're very young because that's when it needs to start. So a lot of my writing has come from this desire to like really try and affect human beings to be raised well and to, make the world a better place. So that's where a lot of it stemmed from. But now I have other ideas now coming into like a serial killer book I have, a story, so that's definitely not related to my life. But yeah, it'd be interesting if
Mhm.
as time goes on, if I don't know if I would ever write anything about me. I guess I don't think I'm that interesting.
Well, I think you're absolutely incredible and so interesting. I would definitely, I feel like I'm already reading your story because you're
Huh.
that, the girl in New York City and you're working entertainment and you moved to California and worked in One in Spirit. And then you're writing a book and you're going around and promoting the book. That sounds amazing.
It's been a fun life, it has been. I
Yeah.
just always feel like we have one life to live, do with it what you can, obviously within legal limits. It's such a great world out there, and I know it's not so easy. Not everybody gets afforded the opportunities, but made my opportunities. I've worked, nothing was handed to me. I worked for everything I have, and we talk like this book. Like, who knows if it becomes a success or not? But you just chip away. You do what you got to do, and I'm having a blast promoting it. Could be simple wins in your life too, right? Like, I, as a kid, loved game shows. So one day was watching reruns of $100,000 Pyramid. And at the end, they were like, if you want to be a contestant, send us a video. Made a video. I went on the show a couple of years ago. Like, it's just little things you can, like, you don't know unless you try. And like I said, as long as it's within legal limits, but you miss all the shots that you don't take or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would definitely take that into my life because yeah, sometimes you don't know. But you're just gonna have to try. And I love to dive in a little bit about the book because I love it. It's all about wine, and I know all the parents out there, yes, we all need wine. We we love wine, and we all need it after they go to bed. It's time for mommy juice. There are a couple quotes. I mean, this is classic. You did talk about it, but I feel like I have to bring this up. I know you mentioned that. Much like fine wine, a kid needs to breathe. I think I mean, I need to breathe. But tell me about this, when you write this, like what was going through your head? Because it sounds so simple, but it's just so profound.
like I said, I was just thinking about like good human behavior. You don't need to be a parent to know you want people to have good manners and you want people to not be a bully and you want people just all the basic human behavior. And so I just started to also see my network around me. Like my best friends, Micah and Nancy, they have the most incredible son, Hudson. He is such a well rounded, such a good kid. And a lot of that I saw is just because they didn't coddle him. Of course they are amazing parents, but they gave him a little extended leash, and I've always felt that way. My parents raised me that way too. Is just they let me breathe, they let me figure things out, they let me get myself back up if I fell. And I think that's one of the key things that made me so worldly from a young age. So then I just started to think about it sort of went hand in hand. I started to think about human behavior, like, oh, letting a kid breathe. Okay, well, that's like aerating, with wine. You want to let it breathe. So I started thinking about both sides of it. Like, what are some key wine terminology like ferment? Fermentation is when sugar turns to alcohol. Well, I was like, sugar's something sweet. Alcohol is something harsh and biting. You don't want your kids turning from something sweet into something biting. So I just started to think about all these fun terms, styles of wines. There's a lot of parallels in wine, both raising kids both require patience. There's different vintages, everybody's different, and both can stain your carpet. So
Yeah. Yeah. But like you said, you really needed to allow space for them to make their own mistakes. And I think that it's still really hard for me because, I am really trying, like my daughter is a teenager now. So I'm really trying to let her make the mistakes because she wants to be, to practice independence. But it's hard. It's like, oh, letting go of that control. And you have to watch someone just kind of go through the hardships and then let them figure it out how they wanted to handle that. I think it's such a great reminder because we all, that's really what we need is to be reminded in a very lighthearted way.
Yeah, and that's exactly the goal, right?
Mm.
I don't doubt being a parent is the hardest job, right? And it's hard. It's hard to just, like you said, to just be like, oh, I should let my kid breathe or, do all that. But and yeah, that's why it's meant to. I don't proclaim to be an expert clinical psychologist or anything like that. It's just from watching human behavior, and I also saw it from my own experience. Like, the kids. I remember in high school, like I didn't really have a curfew. My parents just trusted me. And I was the last of my friends to rebel. I mean, I didn't rebel at all. I just had nothing to rebel against. Like, I remember this girl, Tracy, I went to high school with. Her parents were the strictest. She was the first one that lost her virginity. And, this one who had strict parents, they were the first one to smoke pot. I was late for all that. I mean, it doesn't guarantee. I'm not saying like you give your kids a lot of room and they're gonna, I did see that a lot. And you tend to see that a lot, that kids, when things are forbidden and they're restricted so much, they just have the natural curiosity and tendency then to want it even more. My parents, like, we'd go out to dinner and that's how I started to learn wine at a young age. I always saw my dad enjoying a nice bottle with dinner and how it complemented food. So it became something of like, oh, this is a reward and it's something you enjoy with food. And then I remember, he'd have after dinner Baileys and let me have a sip. And so it wasn't taboo. And so it never
Mhm,
felt
mhm.
like something like, oh, I wanted to run to the liquor cabinet and steal booze for because it was taboo. It was just, yeah, it was presented in a different way to me. And I think but again, it's hard to find that balance, right? When you're in it, like you said, it's hard, I'm sure, just to be like, oh, yeah, no worries. I trust you completely.
Mhm. Yeah. But I mean, I think that human behavior is still it still stands in for adults. I mean, I know that a book called No Rules Rules and talking about Netflix and how they don't actually have any like holidays. They don't assign a number of holidays for employees. They kind of just let the employees, to make decision on their own when they want to take holidays, when they don't want to take holidays, how many days. And actually it turns out that a lot of them don't even want it to take holidays. And I think that's because they have a choice and they get to decide and right? And I think that really applies to this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a great point, and a lot of companies doing that, they're probably very smart too, because then they don't have to pay for unused vacation days. But, it's true, like, it's almost like working from home too. I've been working from home way before COVID with this job in the wine and spirits industry. It is a sort of and especially with my job now, I travel a lot, so I have my home office. It's all about self-discipline, right? If I'm not getting my work done, if I'm taking advantage of vacation, well, I'm going to lose my job. It becomes like you hold yourself accountable, because at the end of the day, if you're not getting your job done, then they'll know. Or if you are taking advantage of all the vacation days, even though they've given you that freedom, they're going to see you're not getting your work done. So I think it's smart. It's smart what they're doing for sure.
Yeah. And another quote that I really liked from your book, I think you mentioned Que Sera Sera. I love that because part of it's because that was one of the songs that my mom used to play when I was little.
Oh,
I sing along, but I guess I didn't quite understand what that actually means. Like what will be. Like I didn't quite understand. But when you mention it in a book, it's like, oh my goodness, are you talking about surrendering?
yeah, so that chapter, Que sera, sera, what will be, will be. Yeah, it's just, that just sort of brings it all together at the end and just says, at the end of the day, I'll just read a couple lines. In the end, you simply can't control and perfect it all. You and your kid are going to figuratively fall. You're both going to make mistakes all along the way, and you each need to know that and that it'll be okay. It's what you do with those lessons at the end of the day. The important thing is how you both use lessons to grow. It'll teach you strength, resilience, and the power to know that next time you can catch the curveballs that life tends to throw. Sometimes you just have to accept things as they happen because one never knows. You can't predict when a hit comes your way or when it throws you some major blows. Be malleable as life throws punches at you. Doing so will only help you keep plowing through. If you fall, it's okay. Brush yourself off and get back up and pour yourself a nice sparkling punch in a champagne cup. Or enjoy the ride with a nice glass of Chablis and say, Que sera, sera, what will be, will be.
Mm, I love that. It's and I think that is your take on life. I think when we were in the very beginning of our podcast, we were talking about how you know that everything will be okay, right? When you're going through something, it's okay because I had gone through some hardships before and I was okay and I'm going to be okay this time. And I think that is
Yeah.
the mentality that parents need to have for their kids as well.
Yeah, because you know what? The reality of it is there's no time machine. We can't go back. So stewing in something, right? Like you just have to look at it as, it's not about avoiding the past or looking back. It's extracting the lesson from it and letting it propel you forward. As long as you're taking that lesson forward, then nothing was wasted. You can't, like I said, you can't ruin what was or what could have been because you can't at that point you can't change it. So, but you can change is the lesson you learned from it and what it taught you to make you better.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that there is another part of the book that you like to read. Tell us about that. I'm eager to listen.
This is the chapter you don't want your kids to ferment. So as I said, fermenting is when you turn sugar into alcohol, so you don't want them turning sweet into harsh and biting. So this is about teaching them manners. Manners, manners, manners are the key to it all. These lessons need to start even when they're small. Teach them this from day one before they start to crawl. You don't want your kid to be the sour grape in the bunch and turn into a spoiled brat that kids want to punch. When they start talking, make sure they know thank you and please, and to always say bless you when they hear someone sneeze. Please and thank you are an absolute must. Without that, your child's a total bust. There's nothing worse than a child whose behavior that is crude, because it'll continue as they're older and become someone who's rude. People don't take kindly to and aren't nice to those with attitude, because it's very off putting and puts others in a bad mood, oftentimes causing confrontation and leads to a nasty feud. Wanting to put a little bit of poison in your child's food. Is that really how you want your kids to be viewed? Wouldn't you prefer that there's someone who's wooed? Without manners, they'll ferment and turn into someone harsh and biting. They may turn into a kid who's rude, obnoxious, and always fighting. So teach your kids some manners and to have some heart and soul. Without that, your kid may well turn into an a hole.
Oh my goodness, I love that. You know what? I think this is so important because now that I had my kid and I realized that a lot of kids started the bullying behavior at a very, very young age. And that was mind blowing because I thought bully only happens in high school. Like, I think to your point that that's not the case, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly there's a chapter in here about bullying, which is my favorite because it is so important, about is your kid a mulled wine? Because mulled wines are heated up, they put spices in them, so they're spiced, heated, and they're served sometimes as a punch, and that's what that chapter specifically is about, is know who your kid is outside of the home. I mean, it's just so disheartening. I mean, I know when I was younger, I never could have imagined somebody so young, 12, 13 years old, taking their own life. I'm sure social media is bringing it more to the surface, right? We're hearing about it more. I think it's also happening a lot more now. Bullying, it starts at a young age and you need to nip it in the bud. And a lot of parents have said that chapter resonated with them because same thing, when you're in it, you say, "Not my child, not my child," but reading that chapter, having it outside, like, they were able to take a step back and be like, "Huh." One person said, she goes, "You know what? Somebody actually said my son was bullying somebody, and it just made me think, like, you don't wanna hear it, but, oh, yeah, it's really important that I heed this lesson and nip it in the bud now, because yeah, it can have lifelong ramifications for both parties."
Yeah, 100%. It's so needed now. I think with social media, we're seeing more, and definitely, I think it is just happening way more and happening younger. I think even in elementary school, that's like it's just
It's
it blows my
wild.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what it does, there was a statistic, like, it's, like, since, like, 2011, it's increased from, like, to 56% or some crazy edge, yeah, and it's younger kids too, like, I wouldn't even I never even had that thought process when I was that young. It's just it's so sad.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to just have these reminder, but in a very lighthearted ways because I think it's hard for parents to see that, oh yeah, I needed to do a better job because who knows, maybe my kid outside of the home could be a bully or could be someone that I hate, right?
Yeah.
Like, what did
Yeah.
I do? And I think that's a harsh reality that a lot of parents if it kind of had to face. But if you had these like lighthearted reminders once in a while, then it just, yeah, it again, like nip it in a bud, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, have you ever imagined having your book translated into different languages?
I mean, I would love that, right? Wouldn't that be the dream to have
Yeah.
this go everywhere? I mean, I hope so. I hope I hope it goes viral. Yeah, that would be a dream. Like I said, I pour my heart into it because it's my way of trying to influence, and nurture. And I just want to try and affect human behavior as much as possible in a positive way. So if this could
Yeah.
be everywhere, that would be a dream.
Yeah. And I can totally see how you could sell this with a bottle of wine, your favorite wine.
Absolutely. It's a great gift with a bottle of wine. If you're going to a
Yeah.
baby shower, pair it with a onesie. But yeah, I mean, people have asked me, this book is, obviously it's geared towards parenting, but it's really for anybody. Every time I use wine terminology, it gives the definition. So if you're just a wine lover and you like a good humor book, you can learn all about wine through this fun book. At the back of the book, it was a basic understanding of how wine is made. So that was my other goal with it as well. As somebody who works in the wine industry, I love making wine knowledge approachable, accessible. Wine's supposed to be fun. It doesn't have to be jarring or daunting. So, I love the idea of just making this a fun, easy way to learn about wine as well.
No, I think I learned a lot about wine from this book. And like you said, I felt like wine sometimes feels a little bit like aloof, people who knows about wine, they're over there. And people who don't know much about wine, where I go to Costco to get my wine, we get like the cheap wines. I'm over here. But it doesn't mean that I don't enjoyed it or I don't understand it. And I think, yeah, your book definitely makes it really approachable.
That's That's what wine should be, is approachable because, I was talking to somebody the other day and they're like, "Oh, somebody asked me about like the notes you smell and the taste and the
Yeah,
this."
yes.
Like I've been working in the wine industry for over 22 years. Sometimes I don't pull out the same notes that the winemaker has talked about, and mine's
Mhm,
subjective. Like, everybody has different palates, and what tastes good to me might not taste good to you, and the industry has become so big that it's become something that's been a little jarring, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be enjoyed, and, the best part about wine is, like, what it brings out for you, right? Is it a memory? Is it about, like I said, is a memory of, being at dinner with my father. My parents were divorced, and I'd see him on the weekends. We'd go have a nice dinner and seeing him enjoy his wine after a hard earned week, paired with a
mm,
beautiful piece, like a nice red with a beautiful piece of steak. I start to learn just the enjoyment. And for me, that's part of it too. It gives me enjoyment, like with my food. I'm a big foodie. Or is it, evoking a memory of, your grandma used to drink this? Yeah, I don't know. It's all about romanticism and what it evokes and what it brings out in you, and it's not right or wrong to anybody. It's just meant to be enjoyed, and it helps when you have a kid having a tantrum at when they go to bed. It eases the pain a little bit.
yeah, and I think that's why I love about this conversation, Danielle, because I feel like it is about enjoyment, and that is a really big part of your life. How do you enjoy the pivots, right? How do you enjoy the uncertainty? And how do you enjoy food? And how do you enjoy wine as a parent? Even when your kids are having a tantrum, they don't want to talk to you, but enjoy that moment and to pick the moment that you get to enjoy. And I think that is so much, that is you. You mentioned that you're an optimist, and yeah, I love that.
Thanks. I try. We all have our bad days. I will say that I'm not perpetually
Mm,
happy all the time, but like I said, I try, and even on sad days, I try and get myself out of it because I try and focus on all the good there is and all the happiness and the things I'm fortunate to have in my life.
mm. And I wanted to know, so at this point of your life, what is your definition of soft power?
Empowering yourself, like the belief in yourself, that is everything. That is going to propel you into the stratosphere, and that's going to get you out of the funk. That's going to get you, over the bridge. Is just the belief you can have in yourself. That's the most
Yeah,
important thing.
yeah, it is. And I think self-trust, self-compassion, self-love, I think that is, I think first and foremost, right? That's what we need at this point, especially these days,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah, especially.
these. For anyone who wants to write, and I don't really think there is an age limit, right, to become a writer. For anyone who wants to write right now and they don't really know how to start and feeling a little bit of fear, what would you tell them?
Just start getting it down on paper, right? You just get it down, get your thoughts down. You can always edit it, you can always go back and write it, but it's just the starting place, right? Putting pen to paper, or these days your fingers on a keyboard, but getting it, getting it down and just seeing where the magic flows from there. You can start off with so many ideas and then get stuck, and that's okay. You could separate yourself from it and move away, but like with anything, like I say, you don't know if you're gonna go on that game show unless you apply. You don't know if you're gonna write that book unless you start with the first words, unless you start with the
Yeah.
title. It all starts with an idea. So you don't
Mhm.
know anything in life unless you give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for being on the show, for spreading the love, the laughter and humor. And, I think that just a reminder of, you know, enjoy your life no matter what.
No, well, thank you so much for having me on. This has been lovely. And, congratulations and continued success on your podcast.
Well, thank you.